Welcome to Mo's World, the baseball podcast. Yep, another baseball podcast. Here we talk about baseball like a few friends sitting at the bar. We welcome your input and look forward to your comments. In our 6th episode of Season 3, we will wrap up a few topics as spring training is coming to an end. Are we ready for the season? Alrighty. Well, one of the things that we want to look at is we all know last year was the year of the imploding bullpen. There were many changes made in the offseason, and there were some key additions to Major League Baseball bullpens for this coming 2026 season. Teams that have remade their bullpen, the Baltimore Orioles adding Ryan Helsley. His previous team was the Cardinals. The Boston Red Sox adding Aroldis Chapman from the Kansas City Royals. The Yankees added David Bednar from the Pirates. The Dodgers added Edwin Díaz from the Mets. The Astros added Josh Hader from the Padres. The Mets added 2 former Yankees, Devin Williams and Luke Weaver from the Yankees, hoping that they do much better. The San Francisco Giants added Sean Newcomb from the Braves. Now, Helsley was a reliable option for the Orioles, and Aroldis Chapman, he's expected to bring experience to the Red Sox bullpen. David Bednar has shown a pretty consistent performance since being with the Yankees. And Edwin Díaz, holy cow, that's a significant addition for the Dodgers after a strong previous season. Josh Hader, he's currently recovering from biceps injury and will start the 2026 season on the injured list. His performance in the previous season included a 2.05 ERA with 28 saves. So the Astros are optimistic about his return, but his exact timeline remains uncertain. These pitchers are expected to play crucial roles in their respective bullpens as 2026 Major League Baseball season begins. Do you remember what bullpens needed the most help from 2025? Well, the best bullpens from the 7th inning on were from the San Diego Padres, the San Francisco Giants, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Chicago Cubs, and the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, the Padres only gave up 3.44 runs per bullpen after the 7th inning. And the Brewers, in the top 5, they gave up 4.02 runs per bullpen. Who were the worst ones? We talked about them all year long, about blown saves and how they were just underperforming. The Washington Nationals threw up. That's exactly right. You wanted to throw up watching them. They pitched 6.19 runs per bullpen after the 7th inning. The Rockies, 6 runs per bullpen. The Diamondbacks, the Angels, and the Tigers were one of the worst bullpens, and they made the playoffs. So that's amazing. They gave up 5.04 runs per bullpen. And don't forget, as we said last year, the Yankees were right behind the Tigers, giving up 4.88 runs per bullpen. Looking at this list, you gotta wonder how teams that made the playoffs actually did it. The Tigers and the bullpens of the Yankees, they sucked. Yet they survived as long as they hit. Now, these are teams that were built to make the playoffs if they only hit. And we know they stopped hitting in the playoffs. So, will the bullpens improve this year? Will the best performing still lead the league? Now, we said that there would be a lot of name changing and exchanging of players. The most obvious with that is the Mets picking up Devin Williams and Luke Weaver, who were disastrous with the Yankees. So the Mets are gambling that they're going to get better. Well, Nobody's really said much about the bullpen of the Cleveland Guardians. Some new names in Cleveland this year could be Cade Smith. He's expected to handle ninth inning duties. Hunter Gaddis in the setup role. He may miss opening day due to injury, though. Peyton Pallett. He's a Rule 5 draft pick, and he did decent in AAA. He's going to be competing for a roster spot. I'm not sure if he's going to make it. Sean Armstrong, definitely a high leverage arm. He had a 2.31 ERA with the Rangers. He's likely to take on significant late inning roles. And Connor Brogdon, probably see him in middle relief. He sucked with the Angels, but that's one of these swapping of a name and hoping that they're going to do better this year. But here's the issue. The Guardians' bullpen is expected to be tested early in the 2026 season, especially with Hunter Gaddis dealing with forearm tightness. Now, this team, to me, is doomed due to the suspension and questions surrounding the entire team on gambling issues. Both Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz have been indicted for rigging bets on pitches thrown during games. This investigation has torn the team apart, and it's one of the reasons I don't expect much of the Guardians this year. Now, moving on to the WBC results. Holy shit. The World Baseball Classic Championship game featured the winners of the semifinal matchups between the United States and the Dominican Republic, where the U.S. won on a so-called controversial play at the end of the game. I say that only because MLB will be using the ABS system, the Automatic Ball Strike Challenge, coming this year for exactly what happened at the end of the game. A low cold strike 3 to end the game, which was 2-1 by the U.S. Now, in the game between Italy and Venezuela, Italy's quest came to an end. Venezuela came back for an exciting 4-2 victory to get the challenge of facing the U.S. in the championship game. The Venezuela team was strong, but the Italian team was the surprising team in the tournament, achieving basically everything this concept is all about: getting the fans and the country excited about players and baseball. This was definitely achieved in Italy, as the team was making the news on a daily basis. And I think the players just got a total kick out of it. The games were all pretty exciting, and some were very surprising. Once again, Team USA seemed to prove that a list of all-stars doesn't mean an easy victory, as their potent lineup was once again held in check for most of the tournament. The U.S. ended up losing to Venezuela 3-2, as the players in general, they stayed healthy, and that was the major thing most teams were concerned with. But no hitting again? The U.S. team was stacked with stars who did not come through. If it wasn't for Bryce Harper's 2-run home run tying the game in the 8th inning, it would have been a total no-show for Team USA. Unfortunately, I do think one thing has happened from the WBC, which is not good. And that's on Mark DeRosa. If he aspired to be a major league manager, I think that ended on his horrendous blunder of not understanding if the U.S. was in the quarterfinals before the game against Italy. Wow, this was bad. It was embarrassing for him, and it's going to haunt him for many years. Now, did you guys hear? There was an interesting comment from Aaron Judge concerning the tournament. Now, Judge stated that the World Baseball Classic has become bigger and better than the World Series. He expressed his sentiment after the U.S. team's 2-1 semifinal victory over the Dominican Republic. He highlighted the passion of the fans who represent their countries and favorite players. Judge emphasized that the atmosphere at the WBC is unique and unmatched. Is he right? Now, I can understand where he's coming from, but Judge gets paid by the New York Yankees to win, and the fans of the New York Yankees expect that winning to produce a World Series. That is a lot of pressure, especially since the Yankees are entering the 17th year since being called world champions. In New York, that is pressure. And the passion of the Bronx Yankee fan is 1 degree, and the passion of a WBC fan is totally different. More, less? No, it's just different. Let's leave it at that. Getting behind the players who represent your country can promote pride, obviously, especially if you're from a country that may not be known as the top dog. Teams and countries like to beat the big dog. It is only natural. For the passion of the fans at the WBC, they appear more supportive of the players and teams representing them. They may make it more enjoyable experience for the player, especially if the player has struggled in MLB playoffs. Teams, cities of Major League Baseball fans expect the top players to perform. Money is pressure. It's as simple as that. If the player cannot handle the pressure to perform, perhaps he is not a player to depend on. Am I insinuating anything? Not really. It's just that I can understand the excitement and passion of the WBC fan as opposed to the everyday pressure to get to the World Series and actually winning. Players probably find it hard to enjoy the moment. They have to reflect on the accomplishment of winning the World Series, sometimes years later due to the pressure of winning. Derek Jeter once admitted after his playing days that enjoying the moment was something that was hard for him to do. And I'm sure he's not the only player who feels this way. I just thought it was disappointing to have an all-star team like the WBC US team, and they didn't show up. Simple as that. They didn't show up. Now, speaking of ABS, are you ready for it? Are you ready for the season of challenging balls and strike calls? It's a fast procedure, so I love it. The strike zone on TV has been a joke for many years, so I'm glad that they will finally be taking care of that. And the stupid act of catchers framing is finally obsolete. Framing is the dumbest thing MLB has stats on. It's such a bullshit talent. Now, get off your fucking knees so you can block a pitch in the dirt with a runner in scoring position. Holy shit, don't get me started with that. Okay, the start of the season. Like I said, I'm ready. Wednesday, March 25th. It features the Yankees versus the Giants in a solo opening day. What do you think of that format? It's kind of cool. I think it would be a cool idea for 2027 if there is an opening day. More on that as the season progresses. But how about honoring the two oldest teams in MLB history to open the season wearing throwback uniforms of the era as well? Who am I talking about? The Chicago Cubs versus the Atlanta Braves. The Cubs were formed in 1870 and the Braves in 1871, making these two teams the old men of Major League Baseball. Wow, 156 years. That's wild. So, also, if you are wondering on predictions and where the teams will end up, don't forget, it's not too late. Check out Season 3, Episode 4, Mostradamus, the podcast recently released, and write those down and see how we do with our predictions for this coming season. Now, we're going to try a new feature on the podcast called A Look Back. We will select a past podcast where we may have made predictions of our own or estimates and look back to see how they turned out. And the first episode we are selecting in this series is from Season 2, Episode 9, called The Yucca Line. Now, in this episode, we talked about how batting averages don't mean shit anymore. We also touched on the topic of anemic batting averages, which hovered around the Mendoza line. And we wanted to honor legendary announcer Bob Uecker and rename this to the Uecker line, which is perfect. So go back, listen to that episode, support that if you can. Let your favorite team know that you want this to be known as the Uecker line. No more Mendoza line. It should be called the Uecker line. Alrighty, gang, I think that's a wrap on today's show. I hope you enjoyed our 6th episode of Season 3 of Mo's World, the baseball podcast. We are entering our in-season schedule for releasing new episodes every Friday. So our next episode will air on March 27th, 2026. And each episode is approximately 20 minutes long. Oh, on a somber note, I do want to shout out to a special listener that will no longer be with us. My little cousin Lorraine has passed away suddenly, and I'm going to miss her, especially her comments on the podcast all through all our episodes. Our thoughts and prayers go out to her husband, her mom and dad, and all her friends that will miss her deeply. She will always be my little cousin. So, thank you for listening. Please spread the word to your friends. In the meantime, ask yourself, whose world is it? It's Mo's World.